Okay, everyone, welcome back. So tonight I figured I would go through and actually kick a release out on the Material Design and XAML library. It has been a long time coming. I keep saying faster, quicker releases. I want to actually start working towards that. So we're going to do some pipeline-y work. We're going to kick some stuff live. We're going to improve the process. So hopefully it's click, click, click out the door. That way when there's issues, quick releases, easy things, and stop telling people to grab nightly releases, etc., etc., etc. Okay, first, couple announcements. One, Hacktoberfest is coming. I am a bit of an oddity. I absolutely love Hacktoberfest every single year. So for those people who may not be familiar with it, Hacktoberfest is an event that happens every year in October, all around getting people excited and involved in open source work. So if you are interested in contributing to open source work, this year they even have low code or non-code contributions as well. So even if you are maybe not feeling overly confident with your skills, but you'd like to help an open source project out, there are options available this year as well. Typically the way it's gone is if you open up 5 pull requests that don't get flagged as spam or trying to think the other word, non-contributing or something to that effect, you end up with a free t-shirt. There's usually a limit, like it's the first 20,000 people or something. Don't quote me on that number. It's been like that in the past. But it's a great opportunity to dive in. You'll see a lot of projects actually investing time in making sure that issues are specifically designed for Hacktoberfest. What that usually means is throughout the rest of the year, the things that are commonly tagged as like good first issue, meaning something really well defined, easy for new people to the project to come in and pick up. Those are the type of things that you see typically flagged as Hacktoberfest. So if you are interested, every year I usually do at least one of my streams in October is devoted towards helping people get started with Hacktoberfest for being able to, how do we use Git? How do we open pull requests? That kind of thing. So usually do at least one stream about that in October. If you're interested, sign up. This year they've got a Discord channel and all kinds of cool stuff going on. So again, Hacktoberfest is great. Mentioned it last time as well. Microsoft Ignite is coming up as well, middle of October. Even though technically Ignite tends to favor slightly more to maybe the IT side of things rather than the developer side of things, there's still plenty of content for developers. There's typically a lot of content around the upcoming release of C# and .NET. For those who are unaware, typically around November-ish. Yeah, Robert, there will be lots of WPF, I promise. Typically around November-ish, new versions of C# release. And so I tend to get very excited, and so a lot of the information in Ignite tends to focus a little bit on the stuff that's upcoming. I think I've said it before, the .NET team commits to nothing. No feature is safe from being pulled out until it's actually released. So take all of the stuff that they say about the upcoming, .NET 7 stuff with a bit of a grain of salt. It's probably all going to be in there, but there have been instances in the past where features have been yanked last minute. So as soon as they ship it, then they're on the hook to support it, but until they ship it, So definitely worth checking Ignite out. There is a couple places for like different parties and whatnot. So you may even check out the if there are local meetups or similar for Ignite in your area. So depending on where you're located, you might be close to one. So if you'd like to go actually meet and network with other developers or technology professionals in your area, give it a look. There's probably stuff around there as well. Oh, one other one that I forgot. I knew GitCon. GitCon is coming as well. So, like Maui, yes. So, I might have to go back and check. I don't recall if I saw any Maui specific stuff, but possibly. The session list is big for Ignite. GitCon, this is GitKraken's conference that they have started doing every year. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year running. Something about in that area. You'll note they actually have quite a few really great speakers on here. So this one's always interesting. It tends to focus a lot on Git and source control, but it's not that exclusively. Some of the stuff will be around potentially DevOps or related stuff. So another free conference if people are interested in. Again, October 11th through 13th. I think that butts up right up against Ignite, if I'm not mistaken, because I think theirs was 14th. Okay. Enough talk. Talk is cheap. Material design and XAML. You can see 4.5.0 released April 27th. According to my clock, it's September 15th, which means that's been months. Ugh. I want to fix this. And part of why it's so painful is it's difficult to go through and do all of the work to build up a release. Before we get too carried away, there was a pull request in here I wanted to take a look at. So this one specifically here, and we're going to ignore the contents of this one because you can see there was some dialog host stuff, there was a UI test written for it, yada, yada, yada. Great, great, great. All of that's fine. What we're interested in is the test failure here. And specifically, you'll note that in this test failure, we're getting some XAML test generators. The element generator is apparently generating, how we doing? The generator's apparently generating duplicate stuff. So people who remember back, what was it, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, there was the release that came out that broke source generators for WPF. Effectively, if you had a source generator in a WPF project, you got executed twice. And it's very unusual to have a source generator that if it generates its source twice, that doesn't cause a duplicate somehow. Like, I'm sure there were some out there that didn't. The MVVM community toolkit library was the chief one that everyone pointed at because it's probably one of the more popular WPF libraries with source generators. In my case, this is my own XAML test one that was failing. So this is now failing. And I think back at that time, I had told people, let's go back here. At that time, and I'm going to go back a commit. At the time, I had, and I even pulled this out on my stream where I was talking about the MVVM toolkit, is I had mentioned to people, hey, go through and just slap this target in, and it will go through and effectively remove the duplicate analyzers that are running. Problem. We have now gone full circle, and if you are running latest stuff, you will probably note that this fix is now breaking. So what used to fix is now breaking it in the reverse way. So if you have gone and added something similar to either your CS proj or in my case a directory builds target, go through and nuke it. This is no longer desirable on latest stuff. So as of, I believe the update that included the fix came out September 13th, Tuesday, 2 days ago. So unfortunately for Nikolai, that is the answer to your, I don't think he's in the chat right now. I don't see him. But I know, Nikolai, I know you tend to watch these. That's the answer to this question here. So the double source generator issue is, yes, this is similar, but it's now the inverse problem. Is the fix is now causing the duplication. So the nice part is I have fixed this on main, and actually, you know what? Let's go through and fix this real quick. Because latest, or I should say latest master already has the fix. Let's just grab this. Let's see, we'll check out this branch. And typically, so get cracking. Effectively, and this is a good example. You've got a pull request. You know, there was some amount of work that was done on this branch here. But now there's a fix out on latest master that we want to ingest onto this branch. Now, a lot of people will just merge master back onto their feature branch, which is an option. I tend to not like that option as much. I land in the rebase versus merge camp. I'm a rebase guy. So get cracking. We just drag our branch on top of the thing that we want to rebase onto. And so we will rebase fix 2844 onto master. We click there. Boom, boom, boom. And so for those people unfamiliar with rebase, if we compare what the previous branch was and what it has done now, if we look at the base of this branch, so the common starting point for it was this one here. What it did is it changed the starting point to this commit and then replayed each of these commits in order. Now, the one really important thing to take away from this, these commits, despite being content-wise identical to these commits, are brand new. You'll note these ones here have Nikolai. GitKraken has conveniently slapped my name as a co-author on here. Thank you, I guess. Because these commits are going to be redone at a different point. These are effectively brand new commits. Same content, but different timestamp. In this, because of the tooling I'm using, additional author in the description. And they're going to have completely new commit hashes. Brand new stuff. But if we push this guy up, force push, away we go. The force push is actually one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like rebase, because every time you rebase, you're pretty much guaranteed to have to force push. Because you're creating brand new commits, you're changing the history. You're rewriting history. You get to be a time traveler. Git is wonderful. And in my opinion, again, this is Kevin's opinion, so don't take this as gospel or anything. If we're talking about feature branches where typically only one or maybe a couple developers are working on it, force pushes are just fine. Like, force push is a problem if you have lots of collaborators all trying to interact with the same branch. So in this case, I forced push to Nikolai's fork because he didn't uncheck the box saying I couldn't. But it's worth noting, right now, there's really only two people who have effectively collaborated on this branch. And I haven't actually looked at the contents that closely yet, so I really haven't collaborated that much, aside from I did a drag drop. And in those cases, what's going to end up happening is if he's using GitKraken on his side, when he fires his up, his local copy of fix 2844 is still going to be back over here where it previously was. And so what a lot of Git tools will do is they'll say, hang on, I'm over here, but now this thing's over here. And it's not straight up, it's like over and up, which means I need to pull to get back down over to here and then go up over to here. So on GitKraken world, you'll see the up-down arrows to say, okay, here's how far I have to go. You don't want to pull in those situations. Typically what you want to do is reset your local branch pointer to be in sync with the remote. In GitKraken world, I just right click and do reset hard and jump me there. Some people delete the branch and re-pull it from the remote. At the end of the day, what's important is to get your local branch pointer in sync with the remote. Okay, so this guy should fire off. This thing should actually work. Let's review this real quick, because if this actually is reasonable, actually I should probably look at the issue in question before we get too carried away. Dialog host. Okay, this just excites me because it is rare that you come across a WPF app that has more than one UI thread. Most people don't believe this is possible. It technically is possible. It's just very seldomly done. Yeah. Yeah, so effectively, the previous code in here was going through and doing verify access, which if you have more than one UI thread, it's very possible that verify access is guaranteed to fail if you've got one dialog host on UI thread A, one dialog host on UI thread B. It doesn't matter which thread you invoke this method on, because you're going to call check access on both threads A and B. A is not equal to B, guaranteed to throw. Yeah, which is the will obviously fail part. Would be smarter to move the dispatcher verification into the equals. Correct. Though the identifier is probably problematic. And I think that was Nikolai's comment, is because this is a dependency property, it's going to end up doing it. Oh yeah, right here. Identifier is a dependency property. Accessing the value will also only allow the owning thread, which works around this by extracting an identifier using the dispatcher associated with the owning thread. Perhaps this is something I could shed some light on. So you're probably fine here. Let's look at the PR. Let's look at the PR before I comment too much on it. Okay, so that is the thing. Let's look at the code first. So dialog instance check access. So if check access passes, meaning you're already on a thread that's able to access this UI objects instance, extract the identifier. Otherwise, dispatcher invoke, which will effectively jump you to the appropriate UI thread to get the identifier. Invoke identifier. We might look at this one really quick because I thought invoke had an overload that took a func, not just, so this may not be obvious. This is an action, not let me make that a little bigger too. Ooh, that's very big. This is an action, not a func, meaning a void returning method rather than one with a value. And I thought there was an overload that had a value, but I might just be getting stuff confused. And then, okay, so that's fine. Get dialog session. Here, I'm gonna move this window when my head's not in the way. Give me the window. About there, because if I go any further, it opens the sidebar on me. Okay, so let's see. Get dialog session should allow access for multiple UI threads. Okay, so this is decorated with STA fact, which is an XUnit way of saying when you execute this unit test, create a special thread that has the single-threaded apartment state on it. So usually single-threaded apartment state. Single-threaded apartment is your UI threads, and MTA, multi-threaded apartment, is your background threads, your task.run, your worker pool, etc., etc., etc. So what do we got? Dialog host identifier, new GUID, alternate GUID, dialog host on other UI thread identifier. So we created two identifiers. Created a dialog host on other UI thread. So this one's being created up on whatever thread our test is running on. This one I assume is about to be created. Sync 1, manual reset event slim, that's fine. Other UI thread dispatcher is null. So are we about, we're about to spin a thread. Okay, so this does apply the style, set the identifier, raise the loaded event. This is part of why I like my XAML test library, is I don't have to go through all this garbage, but my XAML test library is not good for simulating this kind of threaded thing. Okay, so then spins a new thread, gens this guy up, and you'll note this new thread that it's created, the apartment state is explicitly set to STA, calls start, calls wait. So dispatcher run. Am I missing something? Where is this dispatcher coming from? What is this dispatcher run for? I do not understand this. The rest of this makes a lot of sense. It's applying the default style. It's doing all the same stuff on the other dialog host that it did on the first one. And then it's extracting the dispatcher, caching them in local variables, etc., etc., etc. Great, great, great. And then it's calling dialog host get dialog session, and it's passing in both identifiers and verifying that, effectively, it's verifying that it doesn't throw. I think it might be nicer to actually verify that get dialog session. Well, I guess dialog session is going to return null. So the dialog session is, if you imagine the showing of a dialog, in dialog host terms, that is what we have dubbed a session. Because occasionally once somebody shows a dialog, maybe they want to do something creative, swap the content, all kinds of things. And because neither of these dialogues have had like show or anything called on them, this does effectively guarantee that you can invoke this without the other thing doing it. But this is almost the assertless type unit test style, which isn't always bad. So usually when people say assertless unit test, what they mean is a test that's not testing anything. But a passing unit test is any test method that doesn't throw an exception. And all of the assert methods in all of the various testing libraries, the way those work is they throw an exception if the assertion is false, effectively making the method throw an exception. So even without asserts, your test is always verifying that the code within it doesn't throw an exception. Now, how good that is, and this would have previously been throwing. And then it calls cleanup, shutdown. Okay. Yeah, this should be fine. In terms of the question of are you going to run into problems elsewhere, it's probably no worse than anything else. If you've got an app where you have multiple UI threads, you are very likely already familiar with the idea of having to go between those threads at different points. Because if you've got multiple UI threads, you've had to deal with that pain and suffering. So once you get back this dialog host instance, you still are going to need to make sure that you appropriately do something with it. Just because you got back the instance doesn't mean that the code that you use to invoke this with is on the UI thread. So you'll need to go through and, check access, dispatcher, invoke, etc., etc., etc. Let's check this really quick. I think this is probably fine. Oh, we're already on it. Sweet. Sweet. Let's see. Do we still need to worry about that with like service collections in DI? You still need to worry about it. Yeah, so for most WPF apps, the answer is you probably don't need to worry about it as long as you're handling your async and await correctly. The problem is when you have multiple UI threads, normally with WPF, when you're interacting with a UI object, as long as you're on the UI thread, you can touch all your UI objects and be fine because one thread owns them all. If you have two UI threads, you've sort of separated your UI where this UI thread can only touch these things and this UI thread can only touch these things. And usually they're separated by usually separate windows or separate kind of sub processes almost. They usually it's not going to be one window with two UI threads inside of it. That would be a chaos nightmare. So honestly, with async and await, typically those things will actually go back to the UI thread for you. I will point you to one. I'm going to come back to this here in a minute, but I did do a video on a lot of the async stuff. Yeah, specifically around WPF, because async and await, in my opinion, a lot of web developers get it easy because a lot of the complexity with async and await comes with thick clients, front end things like WPF. We have to think harder than they do. And it comes down to the idea of execution context and UI threads, and when is an execution context known, and when is the continuation after your task with await going to take you back to the UI thread versus when is it going to throw you all over the place. WPF app but with a web view. Okay, so potentially embedding web content or Blazor or similar, which is definitely a very viable option. But yeah, so the threading stuff in WPF gets a little more complicated. This thing just, no, it didn't fail yet. Okay. I did want to look at that dialog host method. What was the line? Let's see, 235. Okay, so I thought, yeah, so I think what we can actually do is this, which I think feels a little cleaner to me. Or at least it reads a little nicer to me. So rather than assigning to this variable inside of a callback delegate, it invokes the callback and then takes the return from that and assigns it back over here. Which I think is just a little bit cleaner. Yeah, and this should now be fine. Because it's using the check access to determine whether it needs to. Something in the back of my mind is telling me that we had a helper around this, but I've worked on too many WPF projects, and so I've been slowly getting confused on where I've seen people write helpers around this pattern, where it's some sort of like, invoke if needed, or some sort of extension method that effectively does a check access and then either just does the delegate directly or does it inside of an invoke, which can be helpful. Yeah, so we're gonna add that real quick. Cleaning up the setting of the okay. So that'll go there. That'll clean that up. That'll probably merge. I think what I'm going to do, this looks good to me. Approve. And then I am going to set enable auto merge. So assuming all the build passes, it'll just merge in and everyone will be happy. Okay. So a couple things I want to do to start trying to clean a little bit of this stuff up, because fellow Visual Studio enjoyer, yes. Acoustic Havano? Yes, very much. I love Visual Studio. It is, in my opinion, the .NET ecosystem, the tooling support in it is one of the primary reasons why I love it so much. If you know the Microsoft developer, like the Spanish shake. Okay. If you know the developer, oh, why am I blanking on his name? ASP.NET Core guy, Fowler, David Fowler. He had a great comment on his Twitter a few weeks ago where he was asking people why they liked .NET so much, and specifically the tooling stories, looking for feedback. And my comment was the tooling and that Microsoft gives in Visual Studio and .NET is so amazing. Some of the stuff that we can do is just absolutely ridiculous. Like being able to attach a debugger to a running production site out in the cloud and step through code without bringing down the whole site. Like, I love it. It is amazing. Okay. So a couple things I want to clean up. So first thing, let's create a branch here. Add dependabot. So this is something I've been slowly adding to all of my projects. So if people aren't familiar with this one, let's go here. Dependabot. This is a wonderful thing from GitHub, and especially if you are, oh, that's not a very good one. Where's the docs? Yeah, let's go docs. Docs are probably better. Yeah, this looks better. So one of the things that always bothers me is trying to keep NuGet packages and whatnot up to date, because that is a pain in the neck. Dependabot is awesome. So especially if you've got PR verification already turned on, Dependabot can keep an eye on your dependencies, whether that be, I'm trying to remember everything it supports. NuGet, NPM, there's probably a listing here of all the different dependency chains that it'll support. But the ones that I care most about are making sure my GitHub actions are up to date and my NuGet packages, because .NET, GitHub, we're going to dependabot all the things. So I have an example one here. So if you want a sample one to look at, this is the one I've been using. And I don't need it updated often, but something like this works really well. And so all you have to do to turn dependabot on is create this file. So underneath a .github directory, dependabot.yaml. So in my case, I'm going to cheat. I'm literally just going to go raw, save file. Then I'm just going to real quick move that off my screen real quick, just to make sure I don't accidentally show something I'm not supposed to. Okay. So I come over here, material design XAML, GitHub. Please don't add a .txt. You're probably going to anyway, aren't you? Probably did. Let's check. Did you add the right file? Yay, you added the right file. I win. Okay, so adding dependabot. Because I don't mind getting spammed with pull requests. The material design library already sort of spams me because there's a GitHub action that automatically updates all of the icons, and it runs on a nightly process. Okay, so new pull request. As much as I don't like drag and drop as a interactive thing, so personal opinion. Drag and drop is great for power users who are already familiar with your application. It is horrible for discoverability. That's my 2 cents. So I don't mind drag drop as a means of enhancing your application for power users. I think that beyond that, if that is your only way of doing some sort of interaction, you've got a UX problem and you should fix it. Because no one's going to discover drag drop. I didn't know about it until somebody showed me. So that tells you anything. But get cracking. I can just drag right on top of here, start pull request. There are right-click menus as well on the remote repositories. I will say this one always bites me. If you right-click here, there's no option for create pull request. And it makes sense when you think about it, but conceptually I always forget, is I am right-clicking on my local master branch, and I can't open a pull request to my local master. Effectively, I want to open a pull request from my remote add dependabot branch to my remote master branch. So if you come down to the actual one down here, you can right click on the remote branch and then start a pull request. And you'll note it goes there and everyone's happy. So yeah, that much works. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure, create pull request. Great. And then we're gonna open it here. Ooh, that would be a good feature request. I would love it. Let me just make sure it wasn't there already. I'd love it if there was an option, and I don't even know if the API supports it. I wonder if GitHub's API supports it. I'd love it if I could create this and automatically check the box for autocomplete. That would be nice. Because right now I have to open this one up and confirm that I want this. And it would be kind of nice if I could open a pull request and just say, open the pull request, set the auto merge. I keep calling it autocomplete because that's the Azure DevOps terminology. I need to switch my brain into GitHub mode. But have it create the pull request with auto merge enabled so that if it works, goes through, everyone's happy. Slap that one in. And actually, let's go through here. I'm going to put this into the milestone because it's probably going. And let's see, the related bug should go into the milestone too. It's this one here, isn't it? Yeah. So this one goes here. It's no longer waiting evaluation. It is a straight up bug. Shade Duker, in case you happen to be watching this, if you run into more issues with your multiple UI threads, please log them, because this is not a common use case, and I will admit I do not test under this circumstance. So I'd be very interested in any other problems you come up with. Okay, there's dependabot, there's that. Okay, next up, we want to get a release. Specifically 4.6 should go out the door. Let me just check down here, because on NuGet, we go here. Yeah, so we've been doing CI builds, and these things go out on a nightly cadence. So I've got a little thing that'll check And if there are changes, it auto pushes out. Everyone's happy. Huzzah. Be cool if we made these screenshots auto update, because this is not what these views look like anymore, but so that does shock me as something that would be a great Hacktoberfest issue for somebody. If you do it, wait a couple weeks. Don't open the pull request till October 1st. Don't worry, I'm in no rush. Let's look at what is in the milestone currently, because I think the only thing that's remaining is this flipper bit. Yeah. So the dependabot one is going to go. The multi-threading ones are going to go. Yeah, and you can see this flipper one has been sitting around since last October. And I have a potential fix, but it is ugly and not great. So rather than hold... So I will say the same thing I've told many people, is just because something goes into a milestone, do not assume that that is a commitment to release it. Until it's closed, it's not guaranteed. I'm going to create... This may get rolled up into a 5. Rather than rolled up, get merged into 5.0. I don't know if we're going to go for a 4.7. We've got a fairly large backlog of 5.0 stuff that is going to go. Okay, so let's kick some of this stuff out. Let's see, that one. These are all effectively the same issue. Let's see, so milestone. And one could argue that I should just link them to one and then close them. Okay. There's that. Okay, so release process. Take a quick look. So I don't do a ton on releases. There are a handful of things that are important to me. So one, and this one's got a typo in it. Let me fix that. It's an extra star there. Yeah, update. Just change there. That looks better. So there is a set of key changes, and this is mostly auto-generated. There is the new contributors, which is mostly auto-generated. This full change log, which is, again, mostly auto-generated. This list of contributors. So I do contributors a little different than some libraries. My opinion is people who took the time to write up bug reports deserve credit, not just the people who fix it. So I try to include both. In an effort to do that, I have this GitHub Helper library. And all it does is it's got a little CLI app that you can point it at a repo and a milestone, and it just runs through everything in that milestone, both issues and pull requests, and looks at people who either commented, created, helped review. All of those things I consider contributions because all of that helps the release go. So if you help out on a pull request, on an issue, whether that be submitting code or testing or otherwise, that all counts in my opinion. And I try to make sure that people get acknowledged here. The other thing I did is I took that and where's the button? That button. So a while back I did a stream on this particular project. And the intent here was building out a GitHub action with C#. And specifically, so I can close that now that I've shared it. Leave that one. Where is it? This guy. Let's just go back to the root. I guess I had the root open. There we are. I gen this up as a usable GitHub action that can be referenced. So before it was kind of a pain, and generating up that list of contributors was something I was doing manually. Sucks. Did not like that. But you'll note here, this has the ability to pull in the contributors, set it as an output variable so that it can then be echoed out later. Which, in my opinion, is awesome. Why is this not letting me scroll? My window off the bottom of my... Oh, there it is. I am just at the bottom. Why is my... Sorry, one second. That's what's going on. So I made the small but unfortunate mistake of updating my OBS to a major version about 5 minutes before the stream started. Not a recommended approach. But, So, one of the things I would like to do is improve the release process of this library so that it doesn't suck when it comes time to release. But why is this thing taking so long? This feels like it's been running forever. Have you been running forever? 12 minutes. I don't think that's forever, but it feels long. Trying to look at when some of the last ones ran. Most of them are finishing in under 10. The fact that this is on 13 is a little terrifying. And even the dependabot one, it's not quite there. So there are a handful of tests that occasionally can be problematic, so we may end up just kicking it. Okay, so close you. So I would like to get to a place where I can have most of this release generated for me, because I don't like having to do all of these steps manually. And we may still have to do some of them manually. There's no way around that. I don't know how to fix that. But a lot of these, if not most or all of them, could be automated for me. The other thing you'll note is I upload the NuGet packages as well as the demo app. And the demo app, actually, this zip file contains multiple builds for different target frameworks. We multi-target for reasons, and getting all of these. So let's go through. I want to look at what the existing release process is, because I'm pretty sure it's push tag, which is fine. I'm just not sure how much I like that. Yeah, let's go through. We're gonna leave some of this here, but I feel like I can. Maybe I should ask myself the question: what do I want it to be? Yeah. So worth noting, this release.yaml is not the same one. So there's a release.yaml at the root of the .github, and a release.yaml inside of workflows. The workflow one is the process of actually like running the builds and building up all of the release artifacts. The this release YAML gets used as part of GitHub when you create a release on your repo. So I probably should rename the workflow one, because you'll note the auto-generated changelog, there's a few things that it excludes. Our service account, the GitHub Actions bot, because we don't count those as authors. Anything that I've slapped the ignore for release label on gets stripped out because And then the key changes are anything that I've tagged with release notes. And then breaking changes get flagged up here so that any of those things can be auto-generated. Okay. What I am looking to see here is I'm trying to see. So the important thing here is the trigger for this is a push of a tag. And the one thing that's bothering me a little bit is the tag, and this has bothered me since I did it. The tag pushes with v.version number, but the actual version number comes from these environment variables, which feels a little yucky to me. And more importantly, the release. So typically what ends up happening is what you do is you'd come over here, you'd go releases, draft a new release, and then v4.6.0. And so this thing's going to end up creating a new tag on publish. That might be okay. It just feels, something about this feels wrong. But let's actually get this going. I'm trying to decide if I want to pull in the generation, but let's see how far along we can get. I'm thinking about going through and let's look at bringing in the generation of the contributors into this. I'm trying to balance get the release done with oh dear heavens. So dependabot just ran. And yeah, it found some things to update. Excellent. We are going to be burning the GitHub Actions flow. This one here concerns me that it's been going for 17 minutes. I am really tempted to, well, I'm more interested in if the other one finishes first. See, adding dependabot finished in 8 minutes. This thing's been going for 19. Or queued 19 minutes ago, yeah, and still in progress. This thing finished in less than half the time. This thing's running too long. Cancel workflow. We're gonna kick it again here in a minute and go to town on this. Refresh. Come on, shut yourself down. There you go. Okay. So rerun all jobs. Yeah, go again, and we'll. If we go back to attempt 1, we can now look at the old log. I'm curious what it got down to and where it was hanging. So it was running tests, and I'm wondering if I didn't actually test that new unit test to see if it was going to work or not. That may end up being a problematic thing. We'll see. Lost my train of thought. Where was it going? That guy was running. Oh, pull request. We got stuff here. So some of these I want to automatically rev. So the GitHub action ones, I'm going to enable auto merge on, because those ones I want to go immediately. So this is another auto merge one. Enable auto merge. And then the testing SDK, that's not going to affect the end product. That only affects tests, so we're going to enable auto merge there. This one I want to look at. That I'm not confident on. XUnit's just your testing framework. Auto merge. That's fine. XAML test. That one I want to be a little more cautious on. This release I just kicked out last night with some stuff that I was testing on. Maybe we don't ingest that yet. Draggables we'll probably want to ingest at some point. But I don't want to pick it up right when I'm trying to get a release to go out the door. And then this is also a GitHub action. Let me just check it where this is used. So this is only used in the icon update one, so this is a pretty low risk thing. If it breaks, it's only going to affect the automatic pull request when there's an icon change. So we'll just keep an eye on that. But those guys are now going to town. And incoming email spam. My email client just noticed all of the pull request emails, and away we go. Okay. But that's at least how useful dependabot is. So if you want to make sure that your NuGet packages automatically open up stuff, the other thing that's worth noting is you can I don't think I have an example here. Where did I do it? I had an example. Oh, I think I did it on my XAML library. You can also tell it if there's particular dependencies that you don't want it to update, because that occasionally happens. You can tell it very explicitly, turn this thing off. Please do not update this thing. So this one here, there was an issue with the latest version that apparently is fixed in the preview version of the NuGet packages, but I elected to just say, nah, not going to. Don't update for me. I want to deal with these ones manually. So I just flagged them so they get ignored. Okay, there's dependabot. Delete branch. I believe there's a setting for auto delete branches after merging. Where is that? Where is that? No, I don't want to do that. There's a rule, I thought. Where is the auto delete branch? Let's see. GitHub delete branch on PR. There's a setting. Yeah, that thing. Where is this? Go to settings. Option. Oh, so it's here and scroll. Automatically delete head branches. That's what we want. So dependabot ones will usually clean themselves up, but this will also help me not make a mess of things. Okay. There's that, there's that, there's that. Okay. I wanted to look at GitHub Actions triggers. So I would like to create an action that is responsible for setting up this stuff for me. Because I know my versions. And I would like to grab this. Okay, and I believe we can grab information about this. Release. Created, edited, pre-released, released. I wish there was an information. So this is what I want, but I'm not sure exactly. Published, unpublished, created, edited, pre-released, released. I feel like I want most of these. Yeah, I feel like I want most of these. Workflows are not triggered for the create, edited, for draft release. When you create a release, releases may automatically be saved as draft. Will not trigger for pre-release, published from draft releases, but published type will triggered. How do I, because I'd kind of like, how do I get drafts? Created, edited. Pull request converted to draft. Those are it, huh? Because I was kind of hoping to be able to have a draft and have it automatically pull that information in for me. Because the issue is if I go through and create the... I'm just confused what the difference is between create and publish, given that my options are save as draft, we'll turn that on, category announcements, that seems fine, We might do this the slow way. So let's so you'll note here the gen release notes. This is gold. Okay? This is awesome. So you'll note by doing absolutely nothing, I got all of that. And let me be clear. By absolutely nothing, what I actually ended up doing is this little release thing so that it knows what to look at. So as long as I'm putting things into the milestone appropriately, it's able to look back and go, okay, the previous one was 450. Your new one is called 460. Let me look at the differences between all these things and figure everything out for you. So, and we may change some of these up. Like I try to read over these just to make sure some of these things all make sense. So this one here, 2658, I kind of want to look at what this is. Yeah, so I think this sentence is actually a little cleaner for it. So we're going to change that one just so it reads a little nicer. So let's go back to here, split card template. Let's see, refactor fix to use attached properties. Various changes for card and shadow, a half rating selection, tab control styles. Also, Zalik and Nikolai, these are two people that are part of the triage team that have just been doing an amazing job. So thank you to both of you. Let's see, replace shadow depth with elevation. Add border thickness, and then password box styles with reveal password feature. Cool. Yeah, and it does call out the people who made first-time contributions. Okay, so I think what I might do, at least initially, is let's just spin an action that can get me my list of contributors. That way, at least for now, it's run action, copy, paste. We can automate more later, but let's at least get that far. That seems doable. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go here, and I want to look at this one because this is more or less what I want. Or at least this is close to a starting point of what I want. I don't want it to trigger on push. I probably want workflow dispatch. And I probably want this milestone to be a variable. But I think this will get us most of the way there. So let's do a new YAML file. Let's see. I think we can just do it right from here. New workflow. Let's see. Is there a where's empty? Set up a workflow yourself. Yeah. Let me go. Okay, so we're gonna come down here and we're gonna just get rid of all this. Paste. Okay, so that'll get us to there. Okay, and then we don't want it on push or pull request. That's too much work. And we're gonna change the name of this to be generate milestone contributors. Yeah. Except for I should probably spell generate correctly. Okay, workflow dispatch. And then workflow dispatch, we can take parameters for it. Let's see. Inputs, I think is what the magical thing is. Yeah, I think we can go here. I think that's the magical name. Workflow dispatch call inputs. Yeah, that thing. That's what I want. So we want something like this. Okay, so we want to do this. And then because it's YAML, we want it to not suck. Which is very difficult for YAML at times. Okay, and so we want this to be called milestone, and then the milestone to generate contributors. Default, none, required true, type of string. That seems reasonable. Okay. And then the key part here is then we can reference it like this. We come back over here and we go, rather than it being like this, we're going to go here and milestone. So, job to get latest contributors. That goes there, that goes there, that goes there. That seems reasonable. Start commit. Yeah, we're just going to commit straight to Matt. We'll just cowboy the commit straight on in. Shouldn't I be seeing it right about there? Didn't I just... Where did it go? Show it to me. Oh, it named it main.yaml. Shoot. See, now I have to rename it. Now I have to rename the file. How do I edit you? See, I wasn't looking up here. Generate contributors. Start commit straight into master. Okay, so this is probably just kicking off all kinds of stuff. So we're gonna just start canceling some of these runs because we do not need this much compute power running. Okay. Lots of greens, lots of greens, lots of greens. Let me check the pull requests. This guy's running. I do want to check and see 13 minutes. I am wondering if that new test is causing problems. We may punt this thing out of the milestone if it starts blocking. Because, yeah, might need to double check it. Okay, so we've got these ones. These ones are probably fine to update, but I'm going to wait to do that until post-release because I don't want to pull the trigger and mess this up. Okay, so what we should be able to do now is I should have a generate milestone contributors, run workflow, and we want to do it for 4.6.0. Go. And with any luck, workflow run. There we are. It's all the timing. Mwah. Okay, so this will go do its thing. So if anybody's interested in how that works, the video where we actually built it is there. The GitHub Helper repository itself is not overly interesting in my opinion. It's a CLI app. It uses OctoKit to do stuff. It probably deserves dependabot added to it as well. Hint, hint. If anybody wants a Hacktoberfest thing, I should probably opt it into a Hacktoberfest. I don't think it's set for it yet. Okay. So that hopefully will get me that. Next up, we need to get the icon updates. That's the next thing we need. So you will note that here, and I don't know if people actually even look at this. This might be worth noting. If you actually look at the icon changes, let me know. So the only time I actually have used this, so there is a page on the wiki. If you come over here and go to, where is it, the icon, something or another, pack icon changes. You can come in here and you can see all of the pack icon changes. So generally with semantic versioning, so for people not familiar, Semver, this library generally follows semantic versioning, with one tiny exception. Because the pack icons are somewhat out of my control, we pull in the latest icons from the material design icons here. So all of the icons that you see in the library come from here. And the problem is their release cadence and my release cadence are not in sync. So they may have a release where they go through and remove some icons. It's great. The problem is the very next evening when my GitHub action runs, I ingest those changes, which if they delete an icon, I then delete the icon, which that's technically a breaking API change, which would mean semantic versioning would be revving things oftentimes with breaking changes, and I didn't want to deal with that. So the material design icon or material design in XAML library does follow semantic versioning, except in the case of the pack icon, enum. That one may have breaking changes at any release. And my, so small explanation here, but my workaround for this was automatically generating release notes. So you can see all of the new icons that get added, and we'll scroll down here. Some of them have multiple aliases. We ingest all those too. I do also detect icons where there's been any visual change. So if there's been any change to the path data for that icon, I'll list it out here. I don't bother to figure out how significant the change is. I just say, if it's different, list it. And then there are the removed icons. So you can see, technically, there were 2 breaking changes that went into the 4.4 to 4.5 release. And there's not a lot I can do about it. So with that said, those are the things that are in there, just to be aware. I can't often tell you what all these changes are, but you can go to the material design icons and use these names to look up their release notes. Their names should match our names almost exactly, with a few minor exceptions where I may correct the capitalization to make it C#. That's the only difference. The casing may be a little off from what they call it. But I generally gen these release notes as well. Now, get milestone, get the output. Okay, so here we go. Here is the output, so we can now copy this, which I like this already. I like this already, because now I can come in here, and I can come in here, and I can go boom, boom, I can go paste. And now I've got a list of all the contributors. Why does that include? How come when I copy, it should be WJ8 and string of numbers, not that garbage. Paste. That's interesting. I do not know why it is copying so funny. So we might have to I'm going to just put this to the side so I can take a look at it, because I want to make sure to get this right. Let's see. WJ8 400684. That should be what it looks like. Okay. Oh, I wonder if I was catching something up here and it was just tacking it in a weird place, because I'm seeing the double lined. Okay. So that gets me that. At some point, like I said, I do want to tie this into a workflow that automatically pastes this stuff in for me, because doing it manually still sucks. Okay, and now I would like to get the icon changes. That's something else I should do. I should document this process, because it would be a shame if I was the only one who knew how all this worked. In an ideal world, I should set it up so other people can run all of this. Okay, so I do want to get one last thing here that's pack icon changes, just like what exists here. And I'm going to actually just cheat a little bit. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put this here. And then I already know this is going to be going from 4.5 to 4.6. So because I know the versions, this link doesn't currently work, but it will. Okay, and now we need to gen those up. And I think I can do that with the same GitHub Helper library. I believe this guy has the code for it. Let me just confirm. So let's see, there's the main method. This is using system command line for those who care. Feel free to search my YouTube videos for more on system command line. If you are building command line apps, in my opinion, it is one of the best. It is using a slightly older API that should be updated. I should do that. Haven't done it. Let's see. So this thing used the contributors command, which is fine. Projects, created files, icons. So I would like it to do this icons update for me. So we can probably write the code for doing this. I'm just realizing that I set this thing up as a Docker build, which is fine, except for the configuration for the action. You'll note it's very much hard-coded to doing contributors. The other thing is this would have to run underneath a Windows environment. Let's just run it locally. Open this up. Worth noting, if you go to clone this library yourself, you will need to get yourself an access token in order to authenticate. Any GitHub account should work if you point at the material design library or any other public repo. If you are trying to run it against a private repo, you will need an access token for an account that has access to your private repo. It's probably obvious to people that you have to use an access token for an account that has access to the repo, but worth noting. Okay, I'm going to do one thing real quick, because I'm going to verify I actually have my token set appropriately. Because I may not have a token set. You'll note I have a default value of look at my environment variable. So I'm going to just go open up my environment variables. And I'm going to do that on not the monitor. Okay, perfect. That environment variable exists for me, and it has a value that looks like it's probably legit. Okay, so I left some stuff in here, I thought. Apparently not. Let's go through. We'll just run it from a terminal. That seems reasonable. Give me a terminal. I need a terminal. GitHub Helper. Okay. So we're just gonna do a .NET run -- help. Probably should go into here. .NET run -- help. So people who may not be familiar with this syntax, the double hyphen here tells .NET run. Everything after the double hyphen is arguments to pass to the running project, not for .NET. So I don't want .NET help. I want the help from GitHub Helper. Okay, and so I want to do diff icons, I believe is the... There we go. Okay, so diff icons, and I believe this is hard-coded to the material design project already, so I want to do previous version. Let's see, previous version is going to be 4.5.0. Current version is going to be whatever the latest was from last night. So I don't remember what that is. Let's go and find my latest NuGet package. Blah 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 blah. There, that version. 20 hours ago. So I haven't let any other icon changes in, so that will be sufficient. And so you'll note it goes out, downloads the two things, does all of the stuff, gens the output, and there you go. You're wondering where I get that lovely file. I literally, I don't think that hard. Okay, so there's all the output. So let's just copy. Great. And then let's do, let's see, open a repo, material design wiki, blah, blah, blah. Boom. Let's see, there was, yeah, Zalek was doing lots of updates. Yeah. So for reference, the wiki out on the material design project, I have it opened up so that anyone can edit. And sometimes that feels a little dangerous, letting anybody go through and just randomly edit the wiki. However, I don't know if I'm just lucky or if you all are just really great. Potentially both. I rarely have issues with people doing negative changes. Most of the time when people do changes, it's either spot on or maybe there's just a little things. Like I have notifications turned on so I get notified when there's changes. And so I'll just kind of periodically spot check as I see stuff come in, especially if it's from a user I don't recognize, and just double check the work. And I really haven't had that many problems. Like, so if you are looking at this wiki and you find a problem, fix it. Okay, let's see. File, open repo in VS Code. What? I haven't configured VS Code on this machine? Okay. File, open in VS Code. There we go. So that's actually probably worth pointing out. So Git Kraken and VS Code play really nicely together. So underneath your file menu, you do have open repo in VS Code. If it doesn't work because you haven't configured VS Code, you can go preferences and just set external editor. And as long as, unless you've done something funky with your VS Code installation, it usually just finds it. So it usually is just as simple as setting the dropdown for your external editor. Away you go. But then it's a quick and easy way to say, yeah, I want this repo in VS Code. Pretty please. Okay, so icons. So we want to go here. We want to go paste. And I want to add the version number on the end of this guy. Oh boy, there's going to be a lot of 4, 5, 4, 6. And I don't... part of me was tempted to just get rid of this arrow indicating previous to next. I don't know if it's helpful. When I first put it in, I was convinced it was helpful, and I'm not as convinced anymore. That just seems like a lot bigger scroll bar. Let me just make sure I got the right copy. So the counts that I'm expecting are 15 removed, 195 changed, and 492 added. That looks right. So if we check them here, 492 added, or alphabetized, which makes it easy, 195 changed, and 15 removed. Okay. Let's see. Adding icon changes. Commit. Whoosh. And those are technically live on the wiki prior to it actually being out there. But if we come in here, I don't actually want to be editing you anymore. This link should now work. It does. Huzzah. Great. That goes there. That goes there. Contributors, icon changes. Should be good enough. The only thing left will be to add in the artifacts, which I usually just grab the artifacts from the build. And away we go. Okay. that is all good there. All good there. We don't need that anymore. Let's double check this and make sure there's nothing else I want to squeak in. This guy failed. Interesting. So the second run failed after 20 minutes. Which is probably an indication when closing dialog, it throws no instance loaded. Interesting. So this is just a straight unit test failure. I got time tonight. Let's take a look at fixing this. Let's take a look at fixing this. Are we still on the right branch? Let's go back. Let's see here. We want pull up that. We want to be here though. I don't need dependabot anymore. You can see how very quickly my very simple history graph here went all crazy mode on me. Still 3 dependabot ones sitting out there, but those ones I think we're going to wait on. Okay. Let's go back here. So I will call this out. If you are writing any sort of CI process for .NET tests, one thing that I find incredibly helpful is so the build and test here. Come across when running .NET test, this blame crash. There's also a blame hang as another option as well if you've got tests that just hang every so often. For making sure that you actually get useful information out of it. It's really good. Really good. Okay, so I want to look and manually run this test itself. Apparently you're failing. Let's take a look. Okay, so run test. Step 1, rerun the test in isolation, see what happens. See what happens. While you're waiting, take a drink of Mountain Dew. Today's first can, Mountain Dew Spark, the raspberry lemonade flavor. If you do not like raspberry lemonade, you will hate this flavor. Oh, see, now that's disappointing to me. Because the test passed in isolation, which means we might have a dependency thing going on, which excites me beyond belief. Okay, so let's look at the actual failure here. So it's an assert equals, and it's asserting on a message that is apparently different. So let's go, I don't need you anymore, GitHub Helper, go away. We jump into here. No loaded dialog host instances. So this is what we expect to get. And we apparently got, yeah, so this exception sheet, we expect to get this. And the fact that we didn't strongly implies another test was running and loaded instances count was set. Because this is a static. You know, and this is the thing changing. Let me just look at that pull request one more time. Because I am wondering if, did something move outside of a lock, perhaps? Because statics suck. They are a pain in the neck. Especially for unit testing. But I don't think there was a lock around this before. Let's go here. I just want to double check. So this thing... Yeah, so there's no... So the starting part of this method has been the same. Great. So all we've done is change timing. And actually the additional thread spinning could very easily be part of the problem. So most logical explanation then is the test we just added plus that test is the problem. The get dialog session should allow access. So let's run those two together. So order of clicking is going to matter here. So I'm holding down control when I click to select individual ones. So based upon the order that you select, that is the order that they will get set to the test runner. So if you need to control the order, so you'll note it did this one first and this one second. Here in a minute, I'm going to do the selection in the opposite order if this passes. Kind of hoping it fails. I'm kind of thinking that the new test, when run with the old test, has got an extra dependency in there. I'm thinking. Because it's spinning yeah, the fact that this thing has now been running multiple seconds long doesn't bode well for it. Okay, so yeah, that's... Where is that other method? Is it at the bottom? Yeah, it's at the bottom. Okay, so, oh, this dispatcher run. It's a static call. Okay, so I'm gonna assume, okay, so that's clearly the problem. When run, so let's do it in the opposite order. So rather than going click here, then here, we're gonna click here, then control click here, run. And I'm willing to bet when run in the inverse order, oh, it didn't invert the order. That's really annoying. Take back what I said. Apparently it does not behave that way. Okay. I am willing to bet that there is my problem. I am dispatcher. This is the fundamental problem with all this stuff. So we can clean a little bit of this up while we're in here. And actually, well, okay. While I'm in here, if I have to touch it, I'm not blind refactoring the whole library yet to using latest C# stuff like file scope namespaces, but I'm not opposed to people doing it. Just FYI. It's just kind of a pain to go through and do it all. But I very much appreciate this library will always use latest C# language features. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to use this library on older Visual Studios or older projects. That's fine. If it's a framework that Microsoft supports, I intend to have this library supported. However, if you want to compile from source, you will almost always need latest Visual Studio. That's just going to be a given. So, because you can use the latest language features and still target older frameworks. That's a thing. Some features of C# require both framework and language support. And so those things don't always translate well. But things like file scope namespaces, that's just syntactic sugar. Right? As long as you have a compiler that supports that, as long as you have a version of the compiler that understands how to read a file that way and parse it, you're golden. That's all we care about. Okay, so I'm curious if this test, now that I took that off, if this test will still run in isolation. I don't know that dispatcher run was required, but we'll know in a minute. I don't think it is. Because I think that's what's going to start to hang things up. Oh, you know what? There's probably a much simpler solution to this. Yeah, you're gonna be a problem. Okay, there's a much simpler solution to this. Put this back. Okay. Let's start with the obvious. File scope the namespace. Be done with it. Yeah, that goes away. The simple solution here is we need to make sure that the dialog host is properly unloaded. So you'll note here the main dialog host that's created does this kind of pattern here in the constructor, and then inside of XUnit, if you implement iDisposable, it will make sure to do this on shutdown. And I think that's all we need to do here is make sure that we actually unload the dialog hosts, because we are instantiating these dialog hosts and raising the loaded event, but we're never unloading them. Let's just look through this real quick. Yeah, so this tries to do the invoke shutdown, all that jazz. Okay, so in general, you don't do this in a unit test, in general. But when doing UI garbage, sometimes things like this are necessary. Finally, okay, so let's do, I want to declare you up here. And I don't want you to be target type new anymore because that doesn't read well anymore. Okay, and then you can be target type new. And then you go here. And I think what we do is this. Even though this really can't be null. The only way we'd get to the finally before this thing's been instantiated is if like GUID new GUID threw an exception. So that's not really likely. And then we want to do the unloaded thingy-mabobber. So we're going to come up here. And I bet you this fixes the problem. Because at that point, what's going to happen is the unloaded event inside of the dialog host is what unregisters a dialog host from that collection. Let's see, we want dialog host on other UI thread. I moved the wrong thing up. I want you up here. I want you, and I don't know if invoking this from a different thread is going to be problematic. This thing might need to, yeah, we're gonna move this cleanup down here as well. Again, I don't think, oh, so I am gonna need that dispatcher up higher. Move up, there we go. Okay. Okay, step one, run the test in isolation. But I think it works. I think. Don't know that for sure. The follow-up flavor tonight will be Major Melon. Okay, test passes in isolation. Run it with his buddy. Okay, that's looking better. Okay, so let's do this. So one key thing to note here, I have white space turned off. When you do file scope namespace changes, you'll note you get pretty much the entire file as a diff. And sometimes people don't like doing this refactor because they're like, ah, it's so ugly. White space. Just saying. Now the diff looks a lot more reasonable. Semicolon there, deletion of curly brace there, deletion of a curly brace somewhere. Why do I not see a closing curly brace deletion? Because there's the try catch method class. Oh, there's one more line down here that I can't see. Ah, that's funny. Let's see. There. Let's see. Fixing unit test to unload dialog hosts. Okay. There. Push. Okay. That. I want to go back here now. Let's see. So let's get. Come on. Where's the pull request verification? There we go. Okay. So pull request verification's running. I want to double check what is left in that milestone before I get too carried away, but it should be almost nothing. Yeah, so those two things. So this will be the last bit that actually makes it in. Last bit that makes it in. And then we won't need this. Then we will kick this thing out. So creating this release will create a tag. The presence of the tag will trigger the appropriate action to publish the NuGet package out. That will go out the door. Some people tend to get a little Johnny on the spot and beat me to the punch. Usually it takes NuGet.org like up to 45 minutes to an hour to actually index the package before, you know, it's live for everybody to find it. But I have had people like file issues going, where are the release notes? It's like, calm down, the pipeline's running. Patience, it's coming. Or they're missing like the artifacts on the release. Don't worry, I will add the artifacts to the release. I just need I let the pipeline build them just so that they're standardized and not something built on my machine. But this guy should now work. That should go through, and that should work. We'll have a release out the door. Cool. Okay. While we're waiting on that to run, let's just pop into the discussions and answer some questions, I think. Let's see. This one. Let's see. Yeah, so this one is waiting on feedback, 8 days. Static resources. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We're migrating Framework 4.8 project. Ooh, v310. Material design themes. v450, run into troubles. Okay, so he's trying to migrate from a somewhat older version. The system runs, resource not found here. Static, what's wrong? I didn't find anything of how to get the, so this is, you share your, app.xaml specifically on how you are setting the theme colors. So this was a change that happened, 4.2 might have been 4.0. I can't remember exactly which. So 4.0 there was some breaking changes around how the theming was done, which is somewhat contributing to this thing. But then I think in 4.2, I could have that wrong, there was some updates that got added in specifically to try to make setting these things easier. So if you follow down the case where you do like the bundled theme here, you're not going to get all of the same resources defined for you. So specifically, this guy here sets up a bunch of stuff, but you'll note none of the keys that it's setting are the like primary 100 or similar colors. If you want to leverage those are still available. You just can't leverage the shorthand resource, or you can't leverage it in isolation. Weren't the brushes also renamed in some version? Yeah, so there was specifically this was I believe with the 4.0 release, this used to be called Accent. And with 4.0, it got renamed to primary and secondary to match the material design terminology. And at the same time, before there was just primary, light, mid, dark, and then accent. And we added, for the secondary one, rather than just having one, we said, no, there's no reason secondary couldn't have light, mid, dark as well. Let's get all the things added. So yeah, this one used to be called Accent. I don't recall exactly what it was. It might have just been Accent brush and Accent foreground brush. I don't recall exactly what the keys were. But if you want the individual colors, you can still get them. So all of those specific ones, like what he is referencing, are depending on which color you want. So the helper setup for the themes, where you use either the bundled theme or the custom color theme, those don't end up actually including these primary colors. Now, if you go back and do it the older way, where you specifically bring in something like this, so you'll note here it's referencing material design colors, themes recommended, primary, material design colors, deep purple. All right, so if we go and look at that file, let's see, colors, themes, recommended, primary, deep purple, A, B, C, D, D. You know, this guy here sets up the brushes for the primary colors, but you'll note it's also referencing this deep purple primary.xaml that's up a directory. Rather than being down here, if we just go up to themes, we can look at material design colors, deep purple primary. Let's see, deep orange, deep purple primary, and this is the one that actually has the colors in it. So if you want all of these extra resources defined, you either need to bring these resource dictionaries in directly. The include is not difficult. You can actually, so one, you can just come into, let's see, deep purple. Your merge dictionary thing is going to look really similar to this, slightly off, but you can look at the demo app to get this here, and then just adjust this accordingly, right? So if you want the colors defined, you would end up doing themes and then whichever color thing you actually want and reference it directly. So I suspect this is the problem, but we can give some feedback. There were quite a few theming brush changes in the 4x switch, and I should spell brush correctly. Specifically, if you want to have resources like the primary star colors defined, you need to specify the color theme referencing the appropriate color dictionaries. You can see an example of that using the demo app, and we can link that in. Oh, and then pro tip here. I'll show one clever little thing. If we do latest commit here, you'll note it has subtly changed my, oh, that's not what I want. I want to get, how do I get it to change? Copy raw contents. Oh, copy permalink is what I want. But I want permalink with the line numbers here, 21 through 25. So we can come back here. So we got permalink there, pound L21 through 25, I believe is how that was formatted. L25. Oh, cool sense. Preview, just make sure the link works. Huzzah. There, that way it's at the, that way if I do something crazy like, I don't know, rename this file, anybody who finds this later finds something that's at a point in time when this was accurate. All of those color resources are still available, but the helper dictionaries just call them out, bundled theme, and color theme. Do not automatically add them anymore. They must be explicitly referenced. There. So we'll do that. Okay. And look at that. That guy finished. Huzzah. Pipeline completed. Great. Great. That is good to go. Release, I think, is good to go. Just confirm. Yep. Reset local. Cool. So that merged. Everyone's happy. Yeah, so ship. Now, the one thing that does need to change almost immediately once this goes, and I'm going to wait to push this until the action has actually gone out. So so worth noting, we created this, and if we check the actions right now, so close this, close this, close this, close this. This master one doesn't matter. This one is the important one because this one is the one being fired off from the tag. But as soon as this is successfully out the door, we are going to want to rev the version. Let's see, if we click all files, GitHub, workflows, release. This change here is going to need to go. We're going to rev that up there, rev that up there, rev that up there, since there are no significant changes in any of those. We're just going to let that one sit for a minute because I don't want to push that, rev the versions, and then have something go wrong. We're just going to wait. We're going to wait. Because this should now run. Okay. Check more discussions. Might check the issues too. Rect with structure. That one has an answer. A lot of these have answers. Yeah, very few of these. Dialog host closes automatically after asynchronous call. Just about how to close automatically. I want to explain my approach. Let's see, we've got a user control. The user control has a bunch of content in it. Great. User dialog message. So this is the code behind for that user control. Great. That's some text, set some stuff, toggle some visibility. Add the dialog host in the main window. Great. Yeah, add it in wherever. The one thing I will mention too, the dialog host displays over the top of whatever content you put inside of it. So oftentimes the dialog host is added at a very high level in your Windows hierarchy. It doesn't have to, and it's up to you to decide what content the dialog should display on top of. So specifically that kind of grayed out overlay that shows up when the dialog comes up, that overlay is placed over all of the content that is between the opening and closing tags for the dialog host. Okay, so expand event handler. Great. This is just a delay. Dispatcher invoke. Close the dialog. And the last window closes automatically. Yeah, totally works. I thought there was an example. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought we had an example like this in the demo app, but it may not be obvious. It may not be obvious. Ooh, it's not shown here. I thought we had one that auto closed after a particular point of time. Joker, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Yeah, so this one, can I mark this as an answer? Can I just... I feel like... How do I... there's not a good... I mean, this isn't really a question. This is just a nice demonstration. So this is certainly a way to do it. It's a little complicated on some of the async and await stuff, but I mean, it certainly works. This is definitely an option. Okay, so that looks good. It looks like most of the discussions are pretty well wrapped up. Let's take a look here. This one here, a thickness of pack icon. Yeah, I started looking at this. So this one may not be possible. So this comment here about how these icons are designed, we're going to some of the stuff for how material design exists is very much written by Google with the concept of web in mind. Now, obviously web and Android, because those are their chief areas where they get implemented. And there is no end of material design libraries for web with various theming to make your heart happy. The problem being with the way our icons are set up, yeah, so this marks out that the... Yeah, so this is 1. So this is specifically referencing Material Design 3, but we're going to run amok of how we actually render icons. So allow me to explain. Close, 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 close. If we go in here, so real quick, if we just jump to the pack icon class. So the pack icon class itself is a very simple class. There's an enum, which is typically what you set. This is the big, long, massive, this is the auto, like, I don't write this enum. This, like, no human being should have an enum that's 13,000 lines long. That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. This is generated. And apparently my generator is missing a new line character. Minor detail. Probably never noticed because I don't think I rarely scroll this far down the pack icon enum to get to line 13,000. But this makes it nice and easy. You can specify any member in that enum, and then it will automatically look up the appropriate path data for it. So specifically, this pack icon kind, there's this data property. This is the path data. This is the vector art. So in WPF, one of the ways that we display vector information, think like SVG stuff, is with paths. That's where we can effectively specify the same type of information that would be inside of an SVG. We specify that inside of our a path object, which is then vector-based, meaning it's the algorithm for how to draw the lines, I guess is one way to say it. And that can then be scaled to whatever resolution you want. The problem is, I don't think... And I could be wrong about this. I don't think we have an option for that. I don't think we have an option down here. So the actual UI template for the pack icon is fairly simple. It's not really that advanced. Like, there's a border, and literally the only reason this border is here is to support the background, border, and border properties. That's it. Like, really, the entire meat and potatoes of drawing a pack icon is a view box to hold a canvas. This is the sum total of it, right? And so that data property that the enum is used to then populate with the path data goes here. And then there's a massive dictionary that also gets generated along with that enum. Let's see, where is it? Data index. Yeah, so this is another class you should be open with care. This is the other thing that gets generated. So this is the vector data. Yeah, and the question of doesn't path have a thickness or similar? I think it might have something, and that's where I'm not on path, probably on shape. So there is stroke and stroke thickness. Interesting. Let's fire this guy up and take a look. I'm kind of curious what happens if we... Because we aren't setting the stroke of the path, though, is the problem. We're setting the fill. And that's where I'm not 100% sure that there's not a fill thickness, because fill, like, thickness makes sense when you're talking about, like, the stroke of a brush, but it doesn't make sense when you're talking about just a straight fill. What is your problem now? Huh? You must have gotten confused when I was changing branches. Rebuild? I know you build successfully because you built on the pipeline. Don't give me that garbage about no source converters. And that's where, yeah, so I don't know if we're going to have a property to be able to adjust it, which will be a little interesting. 118 errors. All you, those are probably red herrings. What is? What is going on? I'm gonna just close and relaunch Visual Studio because I feel like Visual Studio just lost its mind. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Come on, launch. Okay, fire up the demo app. I just want to open the demo. We were running earlier. We ran tests. You compiled. What is your problem? Should be something. Come on. Let's see. Output window. Okay, while you're thinking about what you've done with yourself, let's go over here. Okay. Release. And you should have stuff. There's the demo app. There's the NuGets. We're going to just download both of those real quick. Yeah, allow it. I understand. I asked it to download the files. Then we're going to come back over here. We're going to come over to this release. We're going to go get some artifacts. I need my downloads directory. Second, I'm just going to move this off screen because I don't remember what's in my downloads directory. Once again, trying to not just, expose things I shouldn't. I'm trying to be better. Okay. Apparently I already have a demo app. Oh, hush. Stop being dumb. New folder. DIX. There. Both of you go into that folder. That way I can open you and no one has to do the wipe. There we go. Open. There. Okay. So, demo app I just renamed. And inside of here we have all of the various targets. So, if you care to open it in your I gotta hit edit on here, don't I? Edit. Then we scroll down to attach binaries and we go demo app, attach, and add that. And then the NuGets we attach individually. So that if you want to bring them in. This file is empty. I'm going to go with that's a lie. None of those are empty. Oh, I probably have to... Okay, you're probably unhappy doing that from inside the zip. I get it. Fine. I will extract you, and then I will upload you. Okay. Update release. And now what we can do is we can go over to the announcements page. See? Oh, it did the... Oh, GitHub, you make me happy. So, release is live. Why don't you upload the release notes directly from the pipeline? I would love to. So, for the most part, most of what I do on these release notes could be automated. These sections here, the GitHub CLI, when you do create release, there's a switch that you can pass that say auto generate my release notes. So most of these come in from that. The things that are hard to generate, so one, this part here, I can generate from my new GitHub action. So I have an action I added that I can just run at any point and say, give me the contributors for a particular milestone. Easy, which is great. What is hard to generate is the pack icon changes, because these also require doing wiki stuff. And then I usually try to go through and review some of these. Not to say none of this couldn't be automated. It could definitely be improved, because I'd love to make it easier on myself. The artifacts as well should be here now. These guys here really could also be updated from the pipe, or could be uploaded from the pipeline as well. That's a fairly simple addition. Once again, if anybody wants to throw in and do it, I would love it. I do have a sample of doing exactly that. Let me go grab it, because my no, it is Color Kraken where I did it. This guy here has auto-generate as draft and manually make changes and publish. Yes. I would definitely be okay with changing the workflow to do that. The only thing is the current workflow right now, the trigger that actually sends the NuGet packages out to NuGet as a non-preview release is creating a tag, and that trigger probably needs to be turned off in favor of leveraging like release publish instead. Because there's if what I suspect needs to happen is the initial trigger needs to be creating the release. And then there needs to be a second job, either behind an approval gate or something, that pulls down these built artifacts from the release and pushes them to NuGet. Because right now it's almost backwards, where it's building the package, pushing them to NuGet, and then backing into putting them onto the release. That process probably needs to be inverted. But in terms of, for example, on Color Kraken, I started the process of playing around with doing this in the opposite direction, which I think I like better. I've gone round and round on which way I like publishing. So Color Kraken, what it does instead is the trigger to actually start the process in motion for pushing out a release is creating a release. Very simple. It does the build, runs the tests. What's up, Jared? And then the very last step is just go through, gen release notes, upload the relevant files, and away you go. I think I like this better, or something akin to this. I almost want to separate out, so this one's not actually pushing to NuGet because this isn't a NuGet package, but I almost want to have a second job beyond build that is responsible for deploy or push to NuGet or similar. and potentially put that one behind an approval gate with like a environment or something to that effect. I think that's what I want. It's one of those, I always hate doing that work. It's so nice once it's done, but it can be kind of a pain to do because you end up effectively just running builds repeatedly to test, because the only way to guarantee that you've gotten this right is to actually run it. So that's always exciting. The other small thing that always scares me with doing it on this project is I don't actually have access to the NuGet.org account that this thing's publishing to. So if I publish something, it goes. That's exciting. So it's kind of a one-way street. Okay. There's that. There's that. Okay, I was wanting to look at that pack icon thing. What the heck? Did I like back into a version where this thing's... Did I like back into a version where I'm on the wrong SDK or something? Why is this thing just now doing this? I'm very, very confused. Okay, well, more importantly, I just pulled down the demo app, so I can just run the demo app from here. But it's bothering me that I don't... I need to figure out what... This was working earlier. This feels like one of those problems that I should sleep on, because by morning the problem will be apparent, and 11 p.m. Kevin is not that bright. Worth noting, if you do download stuff off of the GitHub stuff, they will all get flagged as downloaded files, and you'll have to do the bypass of the screens like I did there, or you can come in and unblock them here as well, for people who aren't familiar with that. Okay, so let's look at the icons. What? That's not a good sign. Did something butcher the virtualization of the icons list? Ooh, that was a long load. Oh, it didn't wrap. Oh, it murdered the virtualization. See this scroll bar down here? Oh, I bet you I know what change did this. I bet you I know what change did this. Ooh, I approved it. That was not smart of me. Okay, first things first. Bumping version numbers. Just gonna do that. You'll know I am on master. Push. Perks of having extra permissions. Okay, so that's bad. So because it's doing this horizontal scroll, it is trying to render every single one of these pack icons versus a virtualized list. Right, so that's bad. Because we're using a virtualized wrap panel. The problem is the virtualizing wrap panel is not hip to being extended horizontally. It's intended to wrap and not do that. Okay, so we're gonna snoop this guy real quick. So before we get too carried away on the icons bit, let's go here. Yeah, so actual width is 500,000 pixels. That's too big. That is too big. Okay, so the scroll viewer is what's actually doing this to me. Let's see. Horizontal, scroll bar visibility. Disabled? That's not... Oh, it's probably up here. Auto. Yeah, see, that's a problem. Horizontal scroll bar visibility disabled. Okay, so the issue is the main scroll viewer. For those people who didn't catch this, some people don't like using Snoop to debug their UIs. I do not understand those people. Hi, Adam. I find this incredibly easy to do, but I also know the tool. So this scroll viewer here, that's called main scroll viewer, I need to have its horizontal scroll bar visibility not suck. Let's go fix that real quick, because that is a problem. Main scroll viewer. Find it. There. It's on the main window. Let's see. Horizontal scroll bar visibility. Horizontal scroll bar visibility, fallback disabled. But apparently this is being set to auto for the icon one. And that is not correct. So it is, I believe that exists in the main window view model. Main window view model. Let's see here. And demo items, blah, blah, blah. Generate demo items. I want the icon. Rating bar, fields, pickers, combo boxes, sliders, chips, cards, icon pack. Oh, is this one of those vertical scroll bar visibility requirement? Wait, it's hiding the vertical. Nah, that's fine. The horizontal that's biting me, right? Yeah, so I just want that one to change. Pretty please. And then I'm surprised the vertical is showing as disabled. That doesn't seem right. I'm guessing that was the problem. Is it the wrong one got applied? The indentation of this looks off to me. Okay, so I think that works. Now, I'd love to just build this and verify it, but apparently that is a challenge right now for reasons that escape me. But what we can do is, if it gives me crap, yeah, see, giving me crap on the UI test project. So here's what we do. We right click and we go unload project. And we say, that's a problem for tomorrow, Kevin. Or even Saturday, Kevin. It could be either. Hey, look at that. Okay. Now if we go here, the loading of the icons should be not sucky. So I've been wrong before. Wow. Okay. We need to dial this guy down to take, I don't know, 200. I just want to verify this works, not that it... I don't feel like waiting for that thing to load. We're going to just limit it down a little bit. Okay, so... So that's the problem. So what's happening here is the scroll bar is so this is supposed to be pinned to the bottom, and this scroll bar is supposed to just scroll the icons in the middle. Because the wrap panel that contains all these icons is allowed to size to fill all of them, it's still trying to render all 200 of these. Oh, that's, yeah. So, yeah, we don't want that at all. We would like to turn off. Where'd the main window view model go? So we actually want both of these disabled. Vertical scroll bar. Let's see. The icon view handles its own because it wants to do scrolling internally. If we look here at the icon pack 1, it has its own own scroller, specifically this list box. Because a list box has its own scroll viewer inside of it. More importantly, virtualizing. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, because I think I was broke this because there was a few pages that didn't have where the content was getting off the bottom of the window and they weren't getting scroll bars appropriately. You'll note that now loaded much nicer because the scroll viewer is here locked to the list view. If we go back here, take off the 200. This is actually not a bad example of doing virtualized list views. So if anybody has a ridiculously large data set, like hypothetically an enum with 13,000 members, hypothetically, that's how long it should take to load 13,000 items in a list box. And it sounds impressive until you realize I didn't load all 13,000. I loaded, what is this? 5 by 12, so 60. I loaded 60 items at a time, and away we go. Okay, now for the original question. The original question is, can we make the icons thicker or thinner? That was the question to started with, and then I got distracted. There's the canvas, and if we go inside here, oh, the canvas isn't going to let us change it. So let's go. Let's see, close, generic. If we come in here, where's that pack icon guy? Yeah, so if we do something like stroke thickness of, I don't know, 4, right? Big. I'm pretty sure stroke thickness defaults to 1 if I remember correctly. We can double check that. We go to the property. Yeah, default value is 1. So this theoretically is 4 times what it previously was. But I don't think stroke thickness affects the fill. Yeah, I don't think it does. And we could certainly expose the thickness all the way up through the pack icon. It just feels awkward. Okay. Icon pack. Yeah. That did not a thing. Yeah, so not surprised. Not surprised. I'm curious if the icon... So MAApps has a bunch of icon packs that you can download. So one, if you're using the material design library and you decide you don't like one of the material design icons and you would like options for other icons, I would point you here. So even though this is a one library, there are lots of packages for different things. I am curious if these things support... Yeah, they have icon size. Let's icon browser. Let's look at this guy. I'll do net 5, I guess. Maybe a pull request opportunity here to upgrade it to net 6. Fire this up, run. I assume it's not going to give me too much crap. Gonna go. You're gonna make me extract you. Don't be dumb. Just gonna extract. I have a strange suspicion I'm gonna have to unblock it. Just a theory. There. Sudo go. Okay. Yeah, so even on the options that they have available, because the underlying library that the pack icon started off as is the same one that's powering this. And there's not a clear opportunity here for, at least with what's exposed here, showing in a way to do it. I don't think it's going to be possible. So the current not the option to modify the icons in the same way that the that other let's say material design patients do. Yeah, the other thing that interests me, design icons. So I don't even think if we go to the source they support it either. Come on, load. I don't care. Pick on this one. Yeah. Yeah, there's not a clear option for it. Yeah, because they don't even support it here. I'm gonna go with it's probably not worth chasing. This library are generated from within it. Order for this to be possible, because the part that gets weird is it's easy to say we want to increase the thickness, similar to like how fonts go bold and similar, but most fonts end up doing that by having separate glyphs like that. That would mean needing to have effectively separate glyphs, because you can't just thicken the lines in a lot of these cases. Now, if you knew based on what the icon was, you could theoretically overlay this is a hack, just to be clear. You could overlay two icons and shift one of them slightly to make it a little thicker. It honestly would probably be easier to just open up the path data and modify it. It's probably easier. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to leave this here, but I'm also going to put it as out of scope. And I'm going to take the evaluation required off, because I don't think we're going to... I don't think there's a reasonable way to actually go through and implement that. Okay, I think with that, I am going to wrap up for the night. Thank you, everyone who came and hang out and got to watch a release go out the door. Hopefully that's helpful. For everyone who's played around with the beta builds and testing this out, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. If there are issues, please report them. It's rare that I send out a release and don't have some new bugs show up. We try to not break stuff, but my philosophy is if I'm able to kick a release and it got out the door, it means we missed test coverage somewhere. Test coverage isn't great, but it's getting better. So hopefully fewer and fewer of those issues. So with that, I'll tell everyone happy coding. See everyone next time.